I have a file that I'm looking at on my screen right now that has a few people at Cybernews that have Cybernews emails that were infected by information stealers, and I have their passwords right in front of my face.
What's happening, guys? Today on the pod, we have the world's #1 ethical hacker, Ryan Montgomery, also known by his hacker handle 0day. He's a cybersecurity professional, the owner of a company called Pentester, and the CTO of Sentinel Foundation, which combats human trafficking and violence against children. Across our conversation, we talk about the terrifying new trend of information stealers, Ryan's take on SignalGate, the future of hacking gadgets, and all sorts of other interesting stuff. But we start with the story of how Ryan got the title of #1 hacker. It's a great conversation. I think you're going to like it. Enjoy.
I can tell you my personal journey in the capture the flag space with TryHackMe, because TryHackMe has evolved a long way since when I started. And if you'd like, I'll tell you the story.
Absolutely.
Without going into all the details about my previous businesses, because it's kind of irrelevant to the question, I was running 3 mental health facilities at this time. Doing that's a lot of work. I had 144 beds, over 120 employees, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of these facilities. I'm sitting behind a computer working, and I find a friend of mine that's in the bug bounty space, Nafi is his name, who's also a friend of Whitey Crackers. He tells me about Pentester Lab, and I was like, okay, I'll check it out. So I check out Pentester Lab, and it's a lot of web tutorials and a lot of web challenges, and at the end you get a certificate. So I'm running these facilities, but in my free time, I'm doing Pentester Lab, which was only like $20 or something a month, and I'm doing as many of the challenges as I can because I was having a lot of fun doing it. So I'm doing Pentester Lab, and I end up finishing the entire site. I don't know how long it took me, but it took me a while, and I was like, well, what do I do next? So the next thing I found was sites like Pentester Lab, and I saw TryHackMe was an option. So I joined TryHackMe, and a lot of the website at that time was free. It wasn't there's still free segments of the site, but you got to pay to access more than before. And at that point, there weren't pathways like I was talking about earlier with complete beginner and offensive security and things to get you prepared for certifications and all of the stuff they do. I'm not trying to sound like a TryHackMe ad. I'm just trying to explain, what the platform is. So back then, it was, there was the Discord community that I was a part of, and then there was a leaderboard on the site that showed who was the top in the world on TryHackMe, and then you could sort that by country if you wanted to, but the default was all countries, and then you would see a bunch of usernames with a total score. And at that point, I finished Pentester Lab. There wasn't any more exercises to do, and I'm on TryHackMe, and now I'm going through some of these challenges, and it was reminding me of some old times where, like, for example, Eternal Blue, like the NSA's Zero Click or 0day,
of course,
where they gained access to a lot of computers, and then people turned it into WannaCry, which is ransomware or whatever. So the first box that I did on TryHackMe was actually called Blue, and it was just a simulation of running Eternal Blue, gaining access to a virtual Windows machine, and then capturing the flag, putting it into the box, and pressing submit. And I was like, this is so cool. I could simulate environments and not be risking my freedom in the process, and there's a whole community associated with it. So I got excited, if that makes sense. And at that point, that wasn't a challenge. That was an older one, I'm assuming, that they had on their platform. So now I'm just jumping through them. I'm clicking on the ones that I think that are interesting. And at that time, they released 3 challenges a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 2 p.m. And for me, that was a very busy time in my day, but I would try to jump on them as fast as I could. A lot of times I'd see somebody else solve that challenge first. They would get the blood points for solving it first. And, I would still do the challenge, but maybe I would just do it later because I'm not in any rush, so I would just end up doing it at night when I got home, or maybe in the morning if I woke up early. So time goes by, and I'm starting to do a ton of these challenges. And, maybe I have a couple hundred of these challenges done at this point. And I see my ranks going up, and I'm thinking, well, what if I, got in the top 10 in the United States? Not in the world on TryHackMe, but the top 10 in the United States. That was my goal. And I thought that it was pretty achievable with the amount of rooms that I had left, the current position that I was at the time. And, I didn't even need to get blood points because I didn't have the time to even start with these challenges at 2 p.m. So time goes on. And this is like, early days of TryHackMe, by the way. It wasn't nearly as it developed as it is now. Challenges are still built in the same way, but very early days. So I end up selling these medical facilities, and I get into the software business, which means I'm on a computer all day. And now I'm, like at this point, I didn't own a cybersecurity company. It was part of a medical record platform, but it gave me a little bit more time to do, these 2 p.m. challenges Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, this is perfect. Now I can compete. I remember specifically, it was 6 months straight. I did not miss a single challenge. 2 p.m., Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I was competing to get those blood points. And I didn't get blood points 3 times a week for 6 months straight. That didn't happen. But what did happen was I got them a lot of those times. And it gave me a pretty significant advantage over the second place position, not only in the United States, but on the entirety of TryHackMe, all 4 million users that they have right now. So when people look at my account and they see, wow, he's got 10,000 points above the second place position, and usually a room will give you from 60 to 120 points. It's going to take a lot of challenges, to overtake me. Well, that's because there were a lot more challenges being released back then, and I was getting the blood points, which is double the points. There's a lot to that, but I just wanted to explain how I got to the first position on TryHackMe, how I still am in that position, and how that common misconception of number one ethical hacker, because I never claimed to be the best hacker in the world. All I said was I was number one on TryHackMe. That is not the world hacker ranking system. Unfortunately, some people think that I'm a self-proclaimed number one ethical hacker, and that's just not the case. I just tried really hard on capture the flag platforms.
That's interesting. I didn't know that backstory. You actually earned the first place ranking honestly in competition.
Yeah, on TryHackMe though. Yeah.
Sure. That's incredible. I think it's really tough for a hacker to bring an outside audience into their brain to explain what the process looks like of hacking. And I think you're uniquely talented at doing this. Present us with like a fictitious situation that a hacker might be trying to hack into and explain how your brain would approach this problem in as much detail as possible so that we can kind of understand what that process looks like.
Yeah. We can use a bank as an example. And let's say we log into our bank account, we see our account balance. Well, maybe at the top, let's just say in a fictitious scenario, we see that there is a user ID in the URL parameter that says user ID 10. The hacker mindset thinks, okay, what would happen if I put user ID 11? And then you go to user ID 11, and now it shows somebody else's bank account balance, which now you've discovered was called an IDOR. But things can be a little more complicated than that. Maybe it's a network request that's fetching your account balance, and in that request, there's a user ID.
And Ryan, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Like, where are you seeing these requests and stuff? Like, are you popping open developer tools in the side of the browser? Like, how are you seeing these things happen?
So you can simply do it with developer tools and go to the network tab, and you'll see the request fire off there. But the more preferable way to modify requests or watch them and store them is using something like Burp Suite or Fiddler, but preferably Burp Suite. It's used kind of around the board, but it's a proxy, so a man in the middle. You're able to control that request before it gets sent back to its destination. I could show you some examples of exactly what I mean if you want to see them.
If that's not hard to do, I would love to see what that looks like.
Yeah, for sure. So let me pop open Burp Suite real quick. Okay, I'm screen recording this. So this is a browser within, that I popped open from Burp Suite right here. And let's just say we go to example login page. Okay, so now we'll do Josh at Cybernews.
Not my actual sign in. Just know that.
So I just tried to sign into that, right?
Okay.
But if I go into the history, look at all these requests here that came through from Google. So in this case, here's a GET request where I tried to log in as you, but this wasn't a post. I want to show you that actually as well. But here is the password that we typed into that page. In most cases, I'm going to at least know what's being sent in that request. And then I'm going to tinker with that request and see what the server responds with. When you change something as simple as a number, or let's say it says you can only upload JPEGs on the website, like an image, but then when I try to modify the request and I upload, a PHP file, it allows it because the website's blocking it on the front end, but on the back end of the server, there's nothing that protects against uploading something that wasn't allowed. And now I can visit that PHP file on the server, and now maybe I have complete control over that website with remote code execution.
One of the things that you mentioned the last time that we talked was information stealers as perhaps one of the newest trends that hackers are using right now. Do me a favor and explain what information stealers are in a really basic way. How an information stealer might wind up on somebody's computer. If it's done for a legitimate purpose, if it's only done by a hacker, what is an information stealer and how does it work?
Okay, so an information stealer is a type of malware that is meant to go in and out of your machine as quick as possible to steal as much data as it can and then show no evidence that it ever existed. So that means your passwords in your browser, your credit card saved in your browser, any sensitive files that may be stored in your file system on your computer. And that doesn't just include your passwords, it's anyone that's ever used your computer and stored a password. And, in certain cases, some of them are the term for it would be obfuscated or crypted, or built in a way where antiviruses or EDRs are not going to detect them. So like examples of information stealers that are popular right now are RedLine, which is like I made a little example to show you, Raccoon Stealer, Luma Stealer, Bidar, Aurora Stealer, Meta Stealer, there's a ton of different information stealers out there that you can, like I said, educational purposes only, but you could download and compile yourself and run them. But I'd be very careful in that process because if you don't know what you're doing, you could be compiling something or executing something that is sending your credentials for every single person on your computer that's ever even used your computer and saved a password to a server to be either given out for free or sold on the dark web. Some places that you can be infected with information stealers could be in business opportunities where they're sending you a Word document that may have an information stealer binded with it. There could be game modifications. Let's say you're a kid that's playing a video game and you want to download one of the modding tools or hacking tools. And in that tool is an information stealer that grabs the data, uploads it to a server, disappears off the person's computer, and maybe the mod tool works great, but they don't realize they just lost access to everything. And and then in other cases, there are crypto wallet stealers inside of these information stealers. So they get your password, your credit card, your crypto. It could be an absolute disaster. And like I said, they're getting more and more advanced with obfuscation and to evade antiviruses and EDRs, so that it's something to actually be concerned about and to be very careful what you download. And I can show you a pretty cool simulation that I built just for this interview with you and I, where it's simulating what one would do. You wouldn't see it on screen like I'm going to show it, but I'm going to show you exactly what happens, and I'll show you what the output looks like.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so I called it the RedLine simulation. So I'm going to hit enter.
What am I looking at here?
So you're seeing the Cybernews RedLine simulation for interview. So scanning directories for browser data, dumping Chrome passwords, dumping Firefox cookies, extracting system specifications, listing installed applications, collecting FTP and VPN credentials, scraping mock Discord and Telegram tokens, meaning like so that people can log into your chat apps without the passwords, harvesting crypto wallet information, desktop documents for sensitive files, logs for simulated exfiltration, and then what it does is it puts together that data and then creates a folder. So we should have an output folder, and I CD into that output, change directories into the output folder. You wouldn't see it on the screen telling you what it's stealing. It would be silent. You wouldn't know anything happened at all. But in this example, this is what it would actually be doing in the background.
Wow.
And that created a folder called output. So in a normal case, this output folder would not be on the person's computer. It would be somewhere else on a server, let's say in Germany or in Switzerland or Mexico or where, this output folder would not be on the victim's computer. But in this case, since we're simulating it, this is the type of output that you would get. So in that folder, we have application information, browser information, crypto wallet information, sensitive files, logs, messaging applications, and system information. Let's say I want to go into the browsers folder, and I'm going to see here's all the Chrome passwords for that machine and all the Firefox passwords for that machine. And the Chrome passwords say website cybernews.com, username is Josh admin, and password is password123, with a so these are the two saved passwords that were in Chrome on this fake environment. Let's see what the Firefox passwords were. So we have a session cookie for Cybernews. We have a user in that cookie. So let's say let's say we didn't have a password, we just have cookies like it says here, I would replace my session ID with this session ID on cybernews.com and obviously change my user to Josh, refresh the page, and now I'm signed in as you without a password because I have your session.
We're talking scattershot, not sniper rifle here, right? We're talking this is happening to thousands and thousands of people. The information is being stolen, and then everybody gets their own neat little file in a file folder that has all of their private data at someone's arm's length at any given time. We're not talking about like Ryan Montgomery targets Josh Murphy and steals one person's, we're talking thousands, right?
We're talking thousands, and I'm talking terabytes, which is a very, for people that don't know, is a ton of data daily that's being uploaded into these groups with thousands and thousands of victims. And to be honest with you, I have a file that I'm looking at on my screen right now that has a few people at Cybernews that have Cybernews emails that were infected by information stealers, and I have their passwords right in front of my face.
Whoa, and is that because you got access to like a breach forum or something like that? Or how do you see that?
From, like I said, these Telegram groups where we download the stealer logs, I was able to, I can show them on screen, but you're definitely going to have to blur this.
Wow, that's crazy.
Let me sign into Telegram and I'll explain it all to you.
Okay.
Okay, so when the information stealers steal your data, the first thing that they do in most cases is upload them to Telegram. So there's channels that are full of these free logs where you can just download them freely, and they include real victim information daily. And then there's ones where you can buy them, which I'll show you an example. And if you're looking at my screen, you'll see that I'm in one of many channels. So I'm in like, I believe 400 and something individual channels that are updating all day. And if you look, you'll see the date in this one was a while back. There's 1,600 different individual infected computers. The password to the file to read these logs is right here. And then you can hit these people up to buy private logs. The last time that this specific channel posted was May 13th. And I could download a 3,929 megabyte stealer log file right here for free. And if I downloaded this, there's going to be 3,200 people that have a file system that looks just like this, where I have all of these subfolders that have maybe there's 5 family members that are using this computer, and all of their passwords are going to be in there, not just one, all of their passwords and all of their sensitive info and anything valuable on their machines. And there's 3,200 of them just from this one post. And then the one before it, there's 800 people. The one before that, there's 1,600 people. And we're talking, one channel out of 100, over 400. It's constantly posting these for free to download.
That is insane.
Yeah, so do you want to see the stealer logs that came directly from Cybernews employees?
Just to clarify here, we're not talking about your demo program. You're talking about you literally having gone on Telegram and found login credentials for Cybernews employees.
Yeah, so this is part of one of the databases that we have at Pentester. So we just looked up cybernews.com. We pulled out the ones that were directly related to a stealer log,
okay,
or an information stealer. And I don't know if you're familiar with any of these names, but these are the passwords that they're using.
Oh my God.
And you'll see here, there's this, you're going to definitely want to blur this stuff. And then these are the sites that as you see here, these are all different sites with the same person. So these are just saved in that person's browser. An information stealer got them. And now, even though they use a password manager where they're using a different password every time, we now have all of those passwords because the stealer stole it.
Oh my God.
Wow. Yeah, they're doing the right thing. They're doing what I'd recommend. Don't use the same password for everything. But in this case, the information stealer is grabbing all of them.
It just doesn't matter.
In this case, no. So your goal is to not get infected by a stealer.
Why are people giving this stuff away for free? And what's the difference between the stuff that's getting given away for free and what's being sold?
The reason why people are giving it away for free is to entice people to pay for the premium logs. And that means that you're getting fresh logs. So that, let's say I go and download one of those files that have 3,200 victims in it for let's say 2 days, 3 days ago. those accounts might already be burned. Hackers might have already signed into them, resold the accounts, changed the passwords, alerted the victims to where they changed the passwords. If I spent, let's say, a couple $100 to be a part of one of the private groups and to download those fresh logs, now I know when I'm downloading them, I have a way stronger chance that those credentials are still going to work. And that's why they're kind of dangling the bait with the free logs. But you could still do a ton of damage with them because a lot of people do reuse credentials. They may change their password on their major applications, but maybe they forgot about something, or maybe they forgot about an old bank account that is registered to that has a credit card associated with it, and they didn't change that password. These things can be very, very dangerous.
It almost reminds me of like a legitimate above board business. It's like, sure, here's a photo editing program. You get the 7-day free trial, but unfortunately, you're going to have the watermark on your photos. If you want to remove the watermark, pay $200 a month. And it's so crazy that same system is being applied to this illegal hacking commerce revenue stream.
That's exactly what's going on. One thing that I will say is that's the reason why you should use a platform like pentester.com. And Pentester, we have a very large database. We integrate with a ton of different databases as well. And we're going to know about these types of logs. We're going to know about breaches on sites. We're going to know about sensitive information, whether that be your passwords, your credit cards, your social security number, your phone numbers, your relatives, we're going to know about that data before anyone else, and you're going to get alerted about it. And then you can take action before an attacker does. And on top of that, we're going to remove you from as many data brokers and people search sites as possible, like white pages, for example. And there's many more like white pages, but most people are familiar. We automate the removal as kind of a complimentary service for being part of Pentester. And we delete all of those records on your behalf. We can't remove data from the quote unquote dark web, but we can alert you about it and you can take action, which is a very important step that most people don't take until it's too late. And then the last thing I'll bring up, which is a little bit different than stealer logs and data brokers and people search sites, is reverse facial recognition. So something that I do in catching online child predators and traffickers is if I have a face photo of this person, even if it's a side angle of their face, I'll run it through a reverse facial recognition software, whether it be our own or some third parties that we use. And it measures about 120 points on the face, and using databases in certain cases with over 1 billion faces, I'm able to identify you in a photo that maybe you were at. Let's say you were at a wedding 10 years ago and you were in the background of a photo holding a drink, and you didn't even know you were on this photographer's portfolio website. Well, now you're on there, and let's say you want it taken down. Now you know who to reach out to and request removal from that data, or from your face to be on that website.
In my past life, I worked to sell and produce true crime content. And at one point, I won't mention the actual name of the company, but at one point we were talking about maybe partnering with a very mainstream AI company to do a particular project. And the CEO of the company was also very much involved with like combating child exploitation. And he told a story about federal law enforcement having been sent a photo of child exploitation material where a man's face was in the photo, right? But it was kind of unclear. They ran it through the AI, and the AI facial recognition was tied into some of the any publicly visible social media photographs as well. I don't necessarily know that this was like strictly legal or illegal or in a gray area, but that's the way it worked. And they ended up finding the perpetrator because he was in the background reflection of another woman's photo in a mirror at a gym.
Yep, that's exactly what you said. It 100 times better than I could have. That is what we do at Pentester for people that are not criminals, though. So if you upload your own face, we're going to show you that exact same concept. And then if you want that data removed, then you go about the process of removing it yourself or requesting removal of that data, or reach out to us and we'll help you.
It's crazy because it's like on one hand, you definitely don't want the bad guys to have access to your information. On the other hand, it's nice to have it available for use by a vigilante who's using it to do good shit. You know what I mean? It's like
Right. So it's a double-edged sword for sure. Trying to keep yourself private online is difficult to do.
I want to talk about another vulnerability very briefly that I heard you talk about in another conversation, but not go into much depth about. Can you talk about what a zero-click bug is?
Yeah, so a zero-click vulnerability means I'll use a phone as an example because everybody has a smartphone for the most part. So a zero-click vulnerability means if I have your phone number, I can type in your phone number into my exploit on my side of things, on the attacker side. I hit enter, keeping this super simple. Now that sends a request to your phone that you're not seeing at all. Now I have full access to your phone where I can look through your cameras, I can listen through your microphones, I could go through your files, your photos, your notes, your messages, your phone call history, your voicemails, you name it, and there will be absolutely zero indication that I'm even on your phone. You didn't have to download a file, you didn't have to go to a link, you didn't have to open a message. Me just having your phone number was enough to infect your phone. That's what a zero-click vulnerability is.
The way that I heard it discussed was that type of exploit was incredibly valuable for bug bounty, because it is very rare. But how rare is it?
So, I mean, you'll see a couple of them pop up every single year, and it's a lot more rare on smartphones like I was just discussing. There's a group in Israel called the NSO group, who you may have even heard of, Pegasus. They had their original version. They had to use WhatsApp, which that was, I believe, it was still a 0-day exploit where they were the only ones that knew how this exploit was being achieved, but they had to send a message through WhatsApp to get access to the phone. Pegasus 2, to my knowledge, is 0-click. So they just put your phone number in, they hit enter, they have access to your phone. That's worth, hundreds of millions of dollars. So the NSO group, they license it out to other countries for high value targets, whether it be journalists or politicians or whoever they may be trying to spy on, or maybe it is a criminal. But the NSO group is governing that exploit and obviously not telling Apple about it because Apple hasn't patched it, and Apple doesn't know how they're exploiting it. So it's an interesting dynamic, but they have a vulnerability for Android and for iOS that has not been patched to my knowledge, and it's been quite a few years.
How do you have knowledge of this? Is this lore among the hacking community? Do you know people who worked on it? Like, how are you even aware that this is a thing? Is it just Pegasus? Is that what we're talking about?
No, I can almost guarantee you, without having factual proof of it, that there are other exploits that exist out there that especially nation-state actors have access to that we are not hearing about. Pegasus is one that a lot of people may have heard on the news, so that's why I'm using it as an example. But I can confirm that Pegasus is a legitimate thing because just using somebody I met up with recently, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, very popular news reporter, does his own thing, has his own podcast now. 2 times when he was going to Russia with 2 different iPhones, his Signal was hacked. Signal, to my knowledge, has not had any 0-day vulnerabilities or any vulnerabilities that were released publicly. So there's one of 2 things that happen. Either Signal has a 0-day that somebody's breaking end-to-end encryption and reading messages, or they're infecting the phone, which is not being encrypted. If you can see the phone screen, you can read the messages. So for his phone to get hacked twice, I would say that without doubt, Tucker Carlson's phone was infected with Pegasus or something of that sort.
Yeah, I'm glad you took us to SignalGate because I wanted to talk to you about that actually, because the whole controversy, it essentially boils down to, because Signal is a public facing app, even though its encryption is good, I guess what's being asserted is that is not as secure as the encrypted, like, proprietary US government messaging protocols that people should be using. Like, is that true? Is that a good argument? Is this just politics? Like,
I don't think it's a good argument. I mean, look at what just happened recently with an accidental live stream of a Signal clone that the government was using, and data got leaked from it. I don't think the encryption was broken, but they still made a mistake, and data still got leaked with it. I believe it's called telemessage or something like that, which was just a Signal clone. And some politician or president, I don't know who it was, I forget at this point. Now I'm having just a brain fart, but their device, it just displayed the company, hackers were able to pull data from a mistake by telemessaging or whatever the name of the company was. Cryptography is cryptography. Unless you have the private key, you're not reading it. And unless you have a supercomputer or a quantum computer that can break that algorithm, which to my knowledge hasn't been done yet for most of the algorithms out there that we rely on, you're not reading messages in a conventional way. It's just not going to happen. If you have access, like I said, to the device itself, and you're looking at the screen, the same way, like let's say I have a Trojan on your MacBook that I'm looking at right now, or just some way to view the screen of your MacBook. Let's just say something not a Trojan. Let's say I'm using remote desktop software on your MacBook, and I see you open up a website to go buy something, and you have to put in your credit card number, your CVV, your expiration date, your name, your address, all that stuff. You send that information along. That information gets sent to the server, and it's encrypted as it's sent to the server as it processes your payment. But since I'm staring at your screen with remote desktop protocol, with just a remote desktop, there's no encryption happening on that side of things. I'm watching you type the numbers in, and it's happening in front of my eyes. So, encryption's great unless the device itself is infected.
I guess what it is an argument for is any high profile political figure above a certain level with a certain sensitivity, access to sensitive information, probably should not be using some user grade device, right? I mean, probably most of these communications should be occurring in some sort of like CIA skiff or something in a closed air gapped facility or something if you need complete control, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's super overkill, but absolutely. I mean, keeping your phone in a Faraday bag is a good idea so that you're not allowing signals to get in or out when you're not using it, or you're having a private conversation. You just put everybody's phone in a bag. That's kind of a common practice when it comes to meeting with certain government agencies. Like I've personally done it, like not by choice, but they tell me to do that. I know it's something that gets done, using those bags to preserve evidence as well when suspects are picked up so they can't remotely wipe their phones. That's something that you can do, but you can't keep your phone in a Faraday bag and call somebody because you got no cell service. So eventually you're going to have to take it out of the bag. Well, what I would recommend if you want to be extra careful is there are devices out there. They're a couple $1,000s a phone. They're Android based. They're de-Googled is the term for it. And some of them have physical air-gapped switches that will turn the cameras off. It'll turn the Wi-Fi modem off or the Wi-Fi chip inside the phone off physically, where there is no software. You're literally disconnecting that switch. So there's a couple of those phones. You can Google them, find them. One that I remember off the top of my head is called the Obsidian phone, and I believe it's like $3,500, $4,000, and then you can use it in any country, and it uses some type of crazy mesh network where it's encrypting your communications as well. But like anything else, a human can make a mistake. Somebody could say, hey, download this file or open this, and the person that created that device that seemed to be rock solid now just got infected because they weren't thinking of this new 0-day exploit that somebody else was. It's a cat and mouse game, and there's no way where unless you're sitting in a Faraday cage house and you're talking with someone face to face, I would say there's always a way.
Where does this progress 5 to 10 years from now? What are we going to be seeing? Is it going to involve AI hackbots? Are we talking about quantum? Like, what are we seeing in 5 to 10 years that are going to be the most dangerous threats?
AI is going to continue to get better, and especially when the chips get cheaper and they become faster and these AI companies are able to become more profitable, AI is going to advance on a level that we've never seen before. I mean, if you look at the statistics, you'll see that AI is the biggest thing since the announce of the internet. So AI is huge, and it's especially when AGI, like artificial general intelligence, becomes a reality. I don't know where that's going to take us, but I do know that AI is 10x my workflow. I know that there's some bad sides to it too. It's teaching people things depending on what models they're using that maybe they shouldn't know, or maybe they wouldn't have learned it as fast without AI. But on a positive side of things, it's being used to enhance people's workflows, and then on the negative side, it could take people's jobs. So there's the AI side. It's kind of up in the air. I'm trying to figure that out myself, whether I love it or hate it or in the middle. And then the quantum computing side of things, there are people already that are working on quantum safe encryption, because it's inevitable that quantum computers are going to break encryption. And there was some crazy fake video on YouTube. I don't know if you saw it. It was like, it's got like 2 million views, and it's like 45 minutes about me talking about how I shut down quantum computing at Google. It's not real. None of the quotes are from me, but for some reason people believed it. And it's, like I said, 2 million views. Not one quote in that video is me. So I don't know a ton about quantum computing, although the video claims I do. Quantum computers, to my knowledge, though, they use qubits. They don't use binaries like zeros and ones. When they break these encryptions, I don't think it's because they're stronger computers. I think it's because they compute differently, if that makes sense. So I'll be curious to see what quantum safe encryption looks like. I'll be curious to see where AI takes us. I'll be curious to see if AI and quantum become combined as one thing. I'm very excited to see what 10 years from now looks like, because look what 10 years ago looked like. If you were to go back 10 years from today, the difference is just astounding.
We're nearing the end here, but I have to ask, you're also, I would say, largely known for your work with hacking gadgets. What does hacking from the hardware standpoint look like 5 to 10 years from now? Like, what kind of crazy shit are we seeing on that front?
The gadgets are just going to continue to come out. They're going to be smaller. They're going to work with new protocols. They're going to be easier to use for people. I mean, the flipper is a great example of something now, 20 years ago, a device that could do infrared, NFC, RFID, sub-gigahertz, iButton, and then all of, obviously, the GPIO pins to use third-party attachments on the flipper, as well as the applications that are built inside of it. You can even play video games on the thing. You can play music through it. It's something that small to perform that many tasks is unbelievable. But, it's not the most powerful tool in the world, but it shows the capability and how far we've come in such a short period of time. Well, with AI being a thing, and with AI, right now with a large language model, it can only teach what it knows. When AI starts to become conscious and learns things on its own, which is AGI, then it's going to learn new things. I am very curious to know what new is going to be created from a supercomputer or from AI connected to a supercomputer. I don't even know. I can't even come up with the ideas because they haven't came out yet. But I bet you in 10 years we can watch this video and say, wow, I mean, that is absolutely what happened.
Before we end the conversation, is there anything that you got going on? Any businesses you want to plug?
Yeah, I mean, if you want me to plug pentester.com again, I will. I highly recommend you go to the site. You don't have to sign up. Just go to pentester.com, put in an email address that is associated with accounts, maybe one of your old emails or one is connected to a lot of accounts. You'll get a light scan. It'll immediately pop up with no registration, no credit card. You'll see passwords, you'll see information about yourself, and then the next page will be remove data or create an account. And then from there, if you choose to pay, it's $19. And I highly recommend that you check it out. It's worth it. Spend the $19. We'll remove data for you. We'll show you about these breaches. We'll show you where your face has been posted online. And if you need any help at all, we're always available. If you reach out through our support team. And I really, really appreciate the questions that you asked, Josh. And I know that we steered this in a little bit of a different direction than most of my other interviews, and it's interesting for me, and I really like that.
Hey, man, we look forward to connecting again soon, hopefully, and seeing you at DEF CON, if not before.
Absolutely, I will see you there.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Of course.
If you enjoyed this private chat, make sure to like and subscribe. We're going to do more of these things. Plus, we got all kinds of other cool hacking content on the channel I know you're going to like. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.